Hey, this is Kyle Aber, the voice of Ryu in Street Fighter, and you are listening to Dragon Wagon Radio. Hadouken!
Want awesome tabletop games delivered right to your door? Sign up now for Gamebox Monthly. Learn more at GameboxMonthly.com.
Yes, let's talk about it indeed. Thank you so much for tuning back in for yet another installment of Elaborate. Guys, I'm so excited about my guest this week. I think he's the hardest working man in show business. He's a comedian, an actor, a writer, a filmmaker. He is a commentator for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and his new album, Jonny Loquasto Presents Jonny Loquasto's Jonny Loquasto, is available now. It's Jonny Loquasto! Hi, Johnny.
What's happening?
How's it going?
I'm good, man. It's we go back a long way. It's fun to do this. I'm not surprised that your music is phenomenal for the opening.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted the theme to, even though the show isn't about me, it's entirely about me. Don't listen.
Of course it is.
But even though it's about my guests, I want it to sort of reflect me. So it starts really aggressive, but then it just sort of becomes an awkward wuss. That's what I say to people.
Is you?
It's me, right? On the surface, very aggro. Seems like, all right, what's this guy's deal? And then I'm just a warm, fuzzy weirdo inside.
Exactly. That's the best way to describe you.
Johnny, I don't know how you find the time, my friend. Last week, I sat down with a mutual friend of ours, incredibly funny, Mike Bridenstine.
Yeah.
And the two of us yapped, as it would be, about how in God's name you sleep. Because I feel like between commentary work for Championship Wrestling Hollywood, stand-up work, you're constantly touring, you're everywhere. We hear you in voiceover, commercial work. We see you that you're making your own shit. On top of that, you have all of these sort of humanitarian efforts. Regular Hero, and I saw you recently you were working with like an adoption thing for animal adoption. Mm-hmm. Like, do you just, how much speed are you taking? What's the combination?
I don't drink a lot of caffeine. I just don't. God, I'm probably giving myself early onset dementia, and I'm aware of this. But I just don't sleep a lot. I can function on not a lot of sleep, and it's like, we only live once. I'm trying to make the most of it.
Honest, Johnny, you're making the most of it. Honestly, we were singing your praises last week, like two love struck.
I love Mike and I have just been going back and forth about our albums. Like the night it dropped, we kept sending each other updates from the iTunes charts, and he kept creeping up, and he got up to number 2. And it's going to be hard to take out Gaffigan,
right?
Because his album's been out not even 2 months, so it's probably going to be number 1 for at least 6.
Right, of course.
But he got really close. He got up to number 2, and he was really excited.
By the time this comes out from where we're airing, who knows? You never know.
I mean, the iTunes charts, it's so weird. They update them every 2 hours. So,
oh wow,
he was contemplating that night. He goes, I wonder if I should just wake up every 2 hours to check. I said, you should.
Because at like 3 a.m., it might overtake it for,
He said, dude, you never know, and it's worth it. I'm like, your dog is going to be up at 5 a.m. barking anyway. They have this monster puppy that's like a Burmese mountain dog or something.
Yeah, Taker. We were talking about him last week a little bit.
Amazing. And he goes, yeah, my dog wakes up at 5 and barks till 8. That's the usual thing.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great schedule.
But I'm happy for him. It's he's a really good friend, such a talented guy, and album cover is super dope.
Yeah, I love that cover. And now your album is technically it's your second album, if I'm not mistaken?
First one was 6 years ago.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Was that sort of like, so here's the thing. So I never released a stand-up album. I can't equate. I can't compare by any means, but I feel like as a filmmaker, there are sort of those first outings where you're like, that one didn't count. I mean, like Edgar Wright talks about how like his first movie was sort of like, man, he doesn't put that in his list of feature films.
I get that, but then you also have bands whose first album is their best.
Right. True.
This is not the case with me at all.
But what I'm getting at is like your first album, you still own that? You're still, because I feel like I feel like a lot of like younger comics who, and then even at that point, even 5 years ago, you had been doing it for quite a while. So you are a veteran. It's not like, I mean, you're still making your own albums, that kind of thing.
I was only 6 years in when I did the first one. I feel like it was too soon. I just thought it was fun. And
that's what
it's a good album. People like it, but at this point, the stand-up I thought was obviously not like it is now.
Right.
And then the songs were really good. I was super happy with the music. And,
it should be stated that your album is sort of like a variety album more than just a stand-up album, which is fantastic. Another thing that Mike and I were chatting about last week about how like nobody does that anymore. Like
it took 6 months to make.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the album is called Jonny Loquasto Presents Jonny Loquasto's Jonny Loquasto.
Yeah.
It's
I came up with the title first, and I remember writing it down. I was like, I better not forget this because this is the coolest name I've ever thought of in my life. And I was like, I got to make an album as pompous as the title. So I thought of the title first. And I was like, oh my God, what can I do? And then I was like, well, I can do an album based around a fictional late night talk show where I am everything on the show.
Sure.
And I was like, well, what's on that show? I remember I was doing a cruise ship and I had a whole week to myself off the grid.
Just in your head.
Just writing. And you get it. Like you've been there before, writing Pinch and stuff like that, where it's like, all right, what's on a late night talk show? Well, I got to have commercials. Ooh, that's a good chance to do social commentary on all the messed up things. Well, musical guests. Sure, let's have some music.
Right.
Oh, but I want to be an action hero. Okay, let's do a movie trailer. And I was like, and at the time, I remember I saw a really bad Sleep Number Bed infomercial on YouTube. And I was like, well, got to parody that one now.
There you go, yeah.
And so it all kind of came together, and I met this incredible producer who's like one of my closest friends now, who's so talented. His name's Rick Rivera. And we did it all over a period of 6 months, just whenever we could find the time. And
nice.
It's
and the stand-up that is on the album, where was that recorded?
Brea Improv.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. Yep. That's a beautiful club. I love that place.
Love that place. Love the crowd. It's diverse there. It's great.
I would be remiss if we're mentioning your album right out the gate here without mentioning the fact that you debuted as a hip-hop artist on iTunes. Mike loved this. He was talking about it last week. I think it's absolutely hilarious. I understand your frustration. I still don't care. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man, it's funny. It broke my heart, though. So what happened was I chose not to do a record label. In my opinion, for comics, I have yet to find a record label. Maybe a Comedy Central does a good job of promoting their records.
Of course.
Other than that, I just haven't found record labels it's worth doing. If they're going to take 30% of your sales, well, show me why.
Right, yeah, sure.
And I just didn't think it was worth it for me, so I released it independently, and I used a distribution.
And everybody's got their own way. Another thing that we were talking about, like it seems to be a common theme on this podcast, sitting down with people of all different sort of talented endeavors and artistic endeavors, and it's at the end of the day, what's right for one person is not going to be right for the other person. And so by doing it yourself, it allowed you sort of the freedom. It allowed you, obviously,
but also
control.
it allowed mistakes to be made, and which wasn't my mistake. But this company that helps you distribute the album.
Right.
I'm talking to this guy on the phone, and I said, during the process, I didn't see the option of comedy as a genre.
Right.
And I'm trying to explain to him, I said, dude, this is a comedy album. And he goes, yeah, but you signed up for our pro account, which means you can get royalties. Do you have songs? I go, well, yeah, I got 5 songs. He goes, well, you want to get royalties, right? And I'm just like, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Meanwhile, who the hell is going to be using your comedy song?
No idea. And so I thought the guy knew what, like on his end, put me as a comedy album. And then he goes, well, why don't we put hip hop? I said, okay, subgenre. Yeah.
Sure. Because there's a hip hop song on it or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And not realizing he was putting that as the primary. I'll never forget last Tuesday, I was about to jump up on stage. My brother texts me. He goes, hey, your album just went live. Why are you under rap and hip hop? And I'm like, what? Literally.
And, ladies and gentlemen, Jonny Loquasto.
Having a panic attack going on stage. And sure enough, I don't know when I debuted. Like I saw me at number 30 on the rap charts. I may have debuted higher than that, but with iTunes changing every 2 hours, you don't know. But yeah, I debuted like Tupac's Greatest Hits was at number 25. Childish Gambino was like 28. Nice. Lil Uzi was like one behind me. I'm like, you got to be shitting me.
Beautiful.
And the next day I called this company in a panic. I'm like, God, please put a request in.
Change this, yeah.
They got to change, but I didn't even show up on the iTunes charts until 6 days
after it was released.
And shockingly enough, I was still number 11 on iTunes Comedy.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
But then the weirdest thing is when Billboard hit me up, and I was like, I didn't even know what it meant. Billboard hit me up and said, congratulations, you'll be charting this week. I didn't know what it meant.
Right.
So I had to call a friend of mine who's released a few albums. His brother was a producer. And he goes, bro, if you're charting, that means you're definitely top 10 on Billboard. I'm like, wait, is that better than anything else? He's like, Billboard encompasses everything. Yes. Yeah. And sure enough, Tuesday morning, I was number 8 on the Billboard comedy charts.
Fantastic, dude.
Only independent release. And it just
But
meant so much.
I mean, like honestly, that's another reason why I think you and I hit it off all those years ago when we first met, was because we both have that sort of DIY.
We're self-starters.
Yeah, exactly. Self-start. I like the way you put that. Yeah, like you're not going to sit around and wait for anybody to tell you got to do something. You've produced. Oh, that's something I didn't mention. You're also a podcast host.
Mm-hmm. Which you made the music for.
Yeah. So you're also the host of Wrestling Compadres. And is that on any network now?
It's on the stream.tv. We were at Fox Sports for the past year, but then things went haywire over there. And so, yeah, the stream.tv is really cool. They have a great studio, and we're just working on, the transition and
of course,
get it out there more. And so,
right. That's always the hard part. But like you've always, I mean, as long as I've known you, you've been doing a thing of your own that's not just stand up. You've been doing where does that come from? Were you always that way? Were you always sort of like,
I'm not an ADD person. I just have so many interests. Like that's why I wanted to do an album with all the stuff,
right?
Because it's almost like whatever you're into. I know people who just like straight stand-up albums,
right? Yeah.
But I grew up with like the Sandler CDs,
right?
And Dennis Leary, No Cure for Cancer, and Chris Rock, Roll with the New.
There's stand-up on there, but then there's not the Sandler ones, but for some of those there's stand-up on there, but then there's audio sketches. Did you listen to stuff like Cheech and Chong and those sort of like audio comedies when you were younger?
A little bit for sure. And Jerky Boys too. They were
the Jerky Boys. That was a big part of your inspiration. It never grew out. Was there any part of you that was trepidatious to release an album like that? Because it's not as popular anymore?
I couldn't wait. I don't give a shit what's popular. It's like, you got to do what you got to do. And for me, it's like I knew when the year started off, I was like, I don't know what this year's going to have in store.
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing, but what can I was like, what can I control this year? I was like, I can make an album that is the most creative comedy album of the year. And I was like, I'm not going to release it until I think it is. And it's everything I ever could have asked for.
Awesome.
And the feedback there's even a song about depression. It's not even a funny song.
Right. That's great. There's some real shit on there.
It is. I wrote it and my producer made an amazing track. And then he sent it to a friend in Italy who's like a guitar maven. Added his guitars because he liked the song so much.
Nice.
My friend Michelle Santoro, who's a niece of Mike Love from the Beach Boys, she sang on it, and it became this song. 2 people in the past week alone have already hit me up from different walks of life, both saying, yo, thank you for that song. It resonated with me like so strongly. And
that's incredible that you can get that on a comedy album too.
It
was something that you wrote like. Yeah. And you never intended it to be humorous, or you just like feeling some shit and were like, hey, I just felt like writing a song?
That same week when I was on the cruise, I was just kind of like going through some depressed days because we all do at different levels. I'm lucky to where I wouldn't say I certainly don't suffer from depression, but we all get depressed.
Right, yeah, of course.
And I was just like, I just started writing these lyrics down and I was like, man, I think this song could really help people. And so when I gave it to my producer, I was like, what do you think? Should we do this? He goes, I like the vibe. He's like, let me come up with a track. And then when we made the track, I was like, damn, this sounds really cool. And then I asked Michelle, I was like, would you mind singing? She's like, yeah, I'd love to sing on it. And it's like I said, the feedback has been so strong. Like people actually saying thanks for that song. It really helps. And I was like, damn. And that's what I want. I want an album like, yeah, that's funny, but I want it to be thought provoking and make you think globally about the bigger picture in life.
Right.
And I kind of feel like that's how. I don't know what'll come out of it, but hey, Billboard Top 10 and amazing feedback from people is all I can ask for. So.
Nice, dude. Congrats on that. That's awesome. Do you think that because of the response that you got from that song that you'd have interest in writing non-comedic music in the future? Is something that you think you want to do again? Or is it like
I don't think I'm good enough for that.
You just had something in you, you got it out and you're...
Yeah, it was one of those things. And Rick wants me to do at least one music video. And he's like, I think Down Day would be a great music video. I think it would if it was animated. It'd be a really cool animated music video.
Let me ask you this. So obviously you talked all about that inspiration. You talked all about having shit like Adam Sandler and Jerky Boys.
And I think you and I have very similar tastes in entertainment and in comedy and film. Like at least from our friendship, we tend to like the same shit.
Yeah,
so I'm not surprised that you're into the same.
Yeah, and I think it's also like similar age, probably similar upbringing to an extent. Where did you grow up? Were you like a suburbanite kid?
Pennsylvania.
Where in Pennsylvania?
Northampton, Pennsylvania. It's like Lehigh Valley.
That's Northampton, Pennsylvania. Sounds like the whitest city in America.
And I could add to that, actually. Our nickname was the Concrete Kids, spelled with all Ks.
Ooh.
Double meaning, I think. So Northampton used to be the leading producer of concrete in the early 1900s.
Okay.
Like, I think a lot of the Panama Canal has concrete that came from Northampton, which is
Gotcha.
crazy. But there also apparently was a large distribution of Klan members in that era.
Jeez.
Now, our town will never admit to that,
Right.
but
Especially being in Pennsylvania, like.
Yeah, I do believe the 3Ks have, I think it does have something to do with that. Now,
That's not a lot of pride behind that hometown.
no, and look,
but-
people from Northampton, they can call me on it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
I get the feeling, I've talked to people about it, and I'm not the only person that thinks that.
Right, of course.
So it's weird.
But you grew up suburban, though?
Yeah, I mean, at my town, I think we're up to like 20,000 now, but when I grew up, it was like probably around 10,000. But yeah, very not diverse, which is one of the reasons I went to college in Philadelphia, because I needed diversity in my life.
That was something you actively sought out.
Hell yes.
That takes a lot of
I couldn't wait to leave. Like
that takes a lot of gall, because I feel like a lot of kids who grew up in that sort of environment, they're not going to actively like, I need to go somewhere people are different than me.
Dude, most people don't live. They don't leave where I'm from, which is
Right.
fine. I mean, some people want to stay in the same area their whole life. I knew by the time I was in college, I was like, I want to move. I want to do as many things in life as possible. And I knew I love going back to visit, but I just knew the area wasn't for me. I had no interest in settling down.
Right.
No interest in being a regular 9-to-5er.
So when you're growing up in this town and you're already thinking about getting out, was comedy on the mind then? Was entertaining on the mind, or being an entertainer on the mind?
I mean, I think like you, I fell in love with it at an early age. Like I
Right.
was a fat kid, so like I had to get a sense of humor early,
Right.
or else
So were you the funny kid because you were bullied?
kind of.
See, we talked about it a little bit this last week with Mike Breinstein, where there's two types of funny: the funny kid who needed to be funny because he was bullied, and the funny kid who was a bully because he was funny.
Oh no, I was the opposite. I was
you were the first.
never a bully. I was the
Right.
one getting picked on, and I had to develop a sense of humor early on.
Right.
But what changed it all for me was when In Living Color came on the air.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man,
That
show.
specific brand of sketch.
My favorite show of all time. I don't think I'll ever watch a show I like more. I mean, it was so ahead of its time.
Right.
It was so genius, and it was in an era where like there still wasn't a ton of urban-based comedy shows on television.
Not at all.
It blew my mind. And if you look at how many superstars came from that cast,
I mean, literally the Wayans family in its entirety.
just
Obviously,
them.
Jim Carrey is
Jim.
massively huge.
David Alan Grier,
David Alan Grier is just like a comedy god.
he's
That
my
guy,
hero.
he's got one. Oh, really? You put him out there? Like, he's got one of the greatest minds for comedy. Admittedly, I've seen him be in some terrible shit,
Sure.
but he's always great in it.
And not just that, he's Yale School of Drama. He can
Right.
do everything.
Right? Yeah.
He was always my favorite on In Living Color, and to this day, still my favorite performer. And I've gotten to work with him, and it's like a mind-blowing experience for me trying not to fanboy out.
Right? Have you not explained to him that he was this big?
Yeah. No, I
Convinced you?
told him, and he's so mellow and super cool
Right.
about it. But he was like, to me, David Alan Grier was the glue that held In Living Color together, because he can do anything. You could put him in any sketch.
Right.
He could be the guy not getting the laughs. He could be the crazy character.
Yeah.
He could do everything.
Right.
And that's what I loved about him. Even at a young age, I appreciate, like, for everyone that loved Fire Marshal Bill, that was never my thing.
No. Yeah.
I was always into other shit.
I'm kind of similar too. I enjoyed more of the kind of grittier things, the less like cartoony bits that they were doing. Of course, the whole show was somewhat cartoony, but
Yeah.
so you discovered that show and
Man.
that sort of changed it. So that
Yeah,
but
the whole family would
you're a
gather
kid
around.
when that comes out, though.
Sure, I was young. And
Yeah, because I remember I was young too.
But my dad didn't care. Like, we actually, every Sunday night, the family would gather around and we would watch In Living
Really?
Color.
So you had funny parents.
No. My parents,
Well, okay. Well, let me replace that. You had parents who were fans of funny.
yeah, like I remember watching like R-rated stand-up specials with my dad when I was like 7.
Wow.
But like, yeah, we would gather around as a family, watch In Living Color. Then the next day in school, me and my friends would just act out the sketches all day.
Of course, yeah.
Like, I'll never forget, we'd come to school. Did you watch In Living Color? Like, that's what every
Right.
day.
See, for me,
So-
I did love In Living Color. I was obsessed with pretty much any variety show sketch. I was a big fan of John Leguizamo's show.
Hell yeah.
Was it in your house? No, what was it called? Something with house in it?
I thought it was called the John Leguizamo Show.
I don't know. I'll have to research
But
that.
I remember it ran.
I'll have to get my PAs on that.
I think it aired. It didn't. When at one point, I might be wrong here, but Living Color switched to Thursday nights, and I want to say they paired them up together. but I
Right.
might be-
I loved all of those, but for me, the thing that changed, I think, my direction was The State.
Oh yeah.
The State was big for me, and that whole group is my hero. Those are my heroes. I mean, Thomas Lennon, Banger Rants,
which is
Ken
funny.
Marino, that group, Joe Latrulio, like that. Those are my
Which explains your project, The Board.
right, very state-like. Yeah, the web series that we did.
It was so good.
Thanks,
Like,
I appreciate that.
the bad thing is I was glad I was in it, but like I wasn't blowing smoke up your ass when I said like how much I really enjoyed. Like I wish that was something that would have continued.
I honestly, I would love to continue the board. For those that are listening, don't know, the board was sort of this like kind of weird anti-sketch show that we did on the internet, and it was just hard to get traction. I couldn't get eyes on it, and when it's a little, we're talking about being self-starters like that. The board was something that I produced. I did most of the work on. The other members of the board, who were fantastic, they all wrote and they all helped direct and that kind of stuff. But when it came to the nitty-gritty of post-production and all that stuff, it's a lot of work. And then when you don't get eyes on it, it's hard to not be bitter. It's hard to not be sort of like, why did I spend all this time working on this?
Yeah, I see your point, but at the same time, you always have that.
Right.
And somewhere down the road, there's going to be some opportunity pops up that says, "Hey, what do you got? What can you show me?"
Right.
Here you go. I did all this, and
Right.
that's my thought process on that. Is even if stuff doesn't get views, if it's a product you believe in and that you love, it's worth doing. So it's like I had no idea with the album who was going to look at it. I still honestly, I'm still not even on the iTunes new comedy section because I released it independently. I don't have the connections at iTunes.
Right.
Does that make me angry and bitter? Yeah,
little bit,
because
yeah.
I'm number 8 on Billboard, yet iTunes can't put me in the new comedy section. Kiss my ass.
Right.
But at the same time, I was preparing myself for this. I'm like, I'm releasing this independently. I'm not famous. I don't have industry backing me up.
Right.
It's not going to be perfect. And
No.
so the fact that I got on the top 10 at Billboard amongst all releases from major labels,
Right.
it's almost like it's my nicest way of giving a middle finger to.
Sure. Yeah. And it gives you that positive reinforcement that we all sort of need to know that we're not wasting our time
You
or that
have
we're
no
not.
idea what. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice little shot of adrenaline when you get something like that. I mean,
it helped a lot. It really helped a lot.
But anyways, sorry, we have a slight tangent, but yeah, we're talking about like this being inspired by sketch comedy. When you discovered In Living Color, is that when you were just like, oh, okay, well, I want to be funny too. I want to,
Yeah, I became obsessed with comedy at the time, but like growing up in Pennsylvania, it's weird. And you're upstate New York?
No, I'm from Long Island.
You're from Long Island. Okay.
Right.
Like there's not a lot of options as far as wanting to do entertainment.
Right.
So I kind of conformed and, my mom and dad are both nurses and they were like, why don't you volunteer at a physical therapy office? And I did. And I liked it. And I was like, all right, I'll be a physical therapist. And so going to PT school.
That happened when you were like a teenager.
Yeah. And there was a good chunk of college where like my honest plan was to graduate from college, be a full-time physical therapist and just figure it out from there.
Gotcha.
But then my junior year hit and I got bit by like the comedy bug again. I wrote like a feature-length script, which was probably terrible.
Right, of course. But then you read back and you go, oh God, what was I thinking?
Yeah, there were some good moments, but at the
Sure.
same time, it's like whatever. But it was that moment where I realized I'm like, nah, I got to move. And I'm glad I have physical therapy, but like,
Yeah.
it's not like depending on where you are in the country, it's just not an option to like
Right.
entertainment's not even a thought process. Like, oh, I'm going to do this. I didn't know how to do
Right.
it.
I always say the same thing. Like sometimes I get really bitter that I started so late because I'm like, oh God, like I didn't really start getting into even doing stand up until I was, I mean, seriously, more than just like, doing an open mic once every 2 months kind of thing, until I was in my, my early 20s or like mid to early 20s.
Same. I didn't start till 24.
And I'm like, shit, I should have been at 18. I should have gotten into filmmaking. I should have gotten into stand, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, yeah, I didn't have anybody there to say, this is how you do that. It was a thing that you wanted to do, but you didn't know. Now you said that your parents kind of, because they were both nurses, they sort of helped usher you into sports medicine, but I'm sorry, physical therapy rather.
Yeah.
But were they supportive of, did they know that you wanted to do entertainment, or was that a thing you kind of kept to yourself?
No, I mean, I told them when I took my first stand-up class, but for years they were just like, hey, don't quit your day job. That was like, they're like, we love you, we support you, but don't go doing something crazy.
Right.
And I did. I mean, I still do some physical therapy part-time. I have luckily a hospital that lets me come in whenever I want. It's like the best thing.
That's great.
But I was able to resign for about 2 years in 2014. There's about 2 years I didn't need to do physical therapy at all because I was just too busy with other stuff.
Right. That's great.
And I got to that point. Yeah, I got to that point and my parents understood. They finally got it. They were like, oh, wow, he's really making a career out of this.
Nice.
And so, but yeah, they were.
And you definitely have the work to show for it. They can't, it's I have been home talking to family members who've been like, "So what are you doing, Jake?" And I'm like, trust me, I'm working hard. I promise."
Yeah.
Like
It's hard to explain.
You have plenty to show for it, at least. Obviously, I mean,
it's hard to explain to people that don't work in the industry to like what you do exactly, because
Right.
like we do 93 things a day.
surely,
Some would make sense to them, some make no
Right,
sense to
right,
them.
yeah.
So
But so your parents they're supportive, but they're not like ushering you to do these things. When did you? Was that was during high school and college, or were you was that high school essentially? Then you went on and did your own thing in college.
I didn't start stand up till after college. I started at like 24. I was almost 25 when I
And
started.
you said you went to Philly. Is that what you said?
University of the Sciences in Philadelphia.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did you start in Philly? Is that when you did your first stand up?
No, I moved. I graduated, and I remember sitting in a bar with two of my friends one night, and I was like, I know I want to move.
In Philly.
No, back home in the Valley.
Oh, so after you went to college,
Mhm.
you went back home.
Yeah, because I was in a 5-year
Gotcha.
master's program, so my buddies were already graduated.
Gotcha.
I remember I was like, well, they're going to say no, but what the hell? What have I got to lose? I go, we're sitting in a bar one night, and I was like, hey, guys, you want to move to California? And they both thought about it for 10 seconds. They go, yeah. And that was it. And we planned it like a year
Wait,
ahead of
what?
time.
Really? That's
Swear to God.
incredible.
I still can't believe it to this day, but yeah, we planned it out ahead of time. And I remember New Year's Day of 2014, we were about to do the Cheers for Midnight. We said, this is a pact. We're leaving on the night of September 30th / October 1st. We got 10 months to be ready.
Okay, so
So we did.
and you had not done stand up at this point.
Nope.
You had at this point you're still just a physical therapist.
Just physical
And
therapists.
were these two other guys interested in entertainment? Like why
No.
LA?
One dude works in finance, and the other guy does like medical device sales.
Interesting.
No, we initially moved to Orange County. They just wanted to be near the beach. And
Oh, so it wasn't about like LA and the scene as much as it was just, I want to go to the other coast. It's nice there.
yeah, that's all it was. And
Interesting.
we planned it out. We moved. One of them now is married with 2 kids in Jacksonville, and the other one is married and divorced, and he lives in Long Beach, and so he's living the bachelor life again.
Nice. And
Yeah.
so when you first got out here, you went. It was Orange County. You said OC.
Costa Mesa, and I was trying to hang on to a relationship back home, which was a disaster. And
what's that like?
she just did some, instead of just telling me, yo, don't come home, I was 2 days away from deciding whether or not I was going to move home to be with
Oh.
her. Yeah, I almost gave up. And
Was she ever gonna come back to California? Was that ever the plan?
she was still in school, and she just did some really nasty stuff
Right.
that was such a brick upside the head. I was like, I can't leave now.
Right.
And so I got up that morning. I went down into the living room and I go, hey guys, I'm going to renew the lease. I'm staying. And they were both like, no shit. They'd given up on me.
Oh wow. They just
And
assumed that you were gone.
yeah, and it was, and then I went online and I saw on the Improv's website that they had classes at the Irvine Improv, and I was like, I'm taking a college.
That's really interesting. You have to be on a short list of legitimately funny, good, hardworking stand-up comics who started with stand-up school.
I mean,
that is a short list.
this was a pretty good class, though. It was taught by a guy who just did Premium Blend,
okay.
and he was repped by what is now Levity at the time. So
Okay, right.
he had a really solid career going until he just got burned out with stand-up and quit and went back to teaching.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like, and honestly, it's easy to make fun of things. And I feel like stand-up comedy class is like Steve Harvey's known, going on record saying like, if you're in the class, the first lesson you should learn is quit, stop, you're done.
Yeah.
So-
No, I get, and there's a lot of bad classes that'll just take your money. But I
Right.
will say this: there were 7 of us in the class, and 2 of us are still doing it.
Right.
And one of them
Interesting.
just
So let me ask you this: if somebody out there is listening and like, I think I want to try stand-up, do you tell them to go do a class? Or you tell them just to go do open mics?
I just tell them to get up, because honestly, I don't. There's 1 or 2 people I'd recommend in LA who like help teach
Right. Yeah.
or coach, but other than that, like a lot of the classes are money makers.
I honestly, I've never once suggested a comedy class. I don't think I ever could. But it's like I said, that's why I say it's a short list. It's crazy that you came out of one.
I didn't know what to do.
But admittedly, that's the thing is it's not for you. I think it might have been maybe the company you kept. Whereas like when I wanted to stand up, it was because I was around other stand-ups.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like you follow the lead. But if you were literally hanging out with a guy selling, medical scopes
Yeah.
and you want to do stand-up, I guess that's what you do,
I had to immerse myself in it. I had no idea what to do. But like I said, it was a good class. And like I said, one of the guys is still doing it. Just sold with 3 of his friends, just sold hour-long sketch show to Comedy Central.
Nice. That's
neat.
incredible. And so when you moved to the OC, are Are you still doing sports? I mean,
Oh,
physical
yeah.
therapy there?
I was full-time physical therapy until 2008, and then I went part-time for 6 years until I resigned.
Right.
I got a chance to do a thing for the troops in the Middle East, and I didn't have enough PTO.
Right.
So it was either resign from my job or don't go to the Middle East. And like doing stuff for the troops was one of my number one goals, and took me 8+ years to get it. So I told my boss, I said, well, I guess I got to resign. She goes, yeah, I think you're ready to resign. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Know that.
So are you the type of person who does that? You sort of see yourself in a goal. You have a thing that you specifically want to do, and then you go do that.
Pretty much.
Because you are that, again, like we said, you're that kind of person where it's like between wanting to do that, physical therapy, doing the regular hero, which is this other thing that you do. Essentially, it's blood drives, right? Series of blood drives that you do.
Well, regular hero, basically we help whoever needs it,
Right.
you know, with
Oh,
kids
okay.
and their families and fighting cancer and stuff. But specifically, I've become like the blood drive guy,
Right.
and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. And so I feel like you have all these different things. Were these all things that you kind of wanted to do a long time ago, and you're sort of kind of checking them off of your list? Or do you sort of find a new thing?
Well, the regular hero thing came about because when I resigned from the hospital, I genuinely missed being at the hospital. Like,
Gotcha.
there's something about when you're a healthcare person, you always are kind of a caregiver. And I kind of miss putting scrubs on. I miss going to the hospital. I was like, I got to do something for people.
Right.
And I came across this guy at Children's Hospital who organized, he was a blood drive recruiter,
Right.
who I'll miss him. He unfortunately just passed away. And he's like, you should do a blood. Him and I were delivering blankets. I got blankets from a cancer foundation I was working for back home. They sent me a bunch of blankets to give out to kids. And him and I are walking around giving out blankets. And I was like, man, what else can I do? He goes, do a blood drive. I was like, I don't know how to do that. He goes, you'll figure it out. I'll help you. I was like, okay. And it just became the new thing. I was like, well, if I don't have physical therapy, I can do this.
Right.
And it kind of like,
It fulfilled that need.
yep.
I mean, were you the type? Like, I'm gonna hop back just because, again, the way that you operate to me is so much not the archetype of a creative person.
Mm.
I mean, you are extremely creative. You do all of these things, but you also have this work ethic
Yeah.
that is very rare and I don't know if you know this about yourself, or if you're the type of person who can like look inwards and compare yourself to all your friends. I mean, especially comics. Like, work ethic is not a thing that a lot of comics have a great thing of.
It's
or a
weird
great
because
time with.
like I always hear, like, I have so many friends who are like gamers, and I hear so many like comics and other friends talking about like how like, oh, I just binged watched so-and-so this
Right.
weekend. And I just want to be like, how?
Right. Yeah.
How do you have time to do this shit? To be a gamer, to where you're good at video games as a grown adult.
Yeah.
How do you have time and still function
Right.
and pay your? It's like baffling to me. Like maybe there's more hours in a day that I don't fucking know. But like I would love to play video games. I just got too much other shit on my plate.
True.
You know.
True,
But
but
then again, people are getting paid to play video games now. So maybe.
What I was getting at with that was, were you a good student? Were you the type of kid who was like really A-type?
No.
And really.
Well, no, I had to study my ass off. That's where it came from. Like,
Gotcha.
I got a 3.4 in college and Dean's List, but it wasn't because, like, I had friends
It didn't come natural to you.
hell no. Like, my brother was a
Oh, that's
natural
interesting.
genius. Yeah, like my brother was class salutatorian. UC Santa Barbara paid for his grad school. He's got a PhD in chemical engineering. If you talk to him, normal guy,
Right.
you wouldn't know he's brilliant.
Just has a magic brain.
Yeah, like he was in the gifted program. I remember my parents must have had me tested like 73 times for the gifted program. Failed every time.
They were so upset that you weren't in it. They were like, really? Come on. The other one's in it. This one's got to be in it.
I was like, guess what? I'm the dumb one. Let's just accept it. And I had to bust my balls to get good grades. And that's honestly where the work ethic came
Gotcha.
from. It's like, and
Which
also
is probably healthy. You know what? And it's funny.
You
We
know.
talked about, me and my buddy Brian. I don't know if you met Brian or not, if he might have helped when we were making the movie, but we talked about this where we feel like so many kids get praised for shit that they're naturally good at,
Mhm.
and the stuff that they're busting their ass on because it doesn't come easy to them, or, you know what I mean? They don't get that sort of praise. And I feel like it really affects the way that you live. Like, and I admittedly are the opposite of you, where
Mhm.
like, if I don't have somebody tell me, hey, you're really good at this, then I don't give it time. And it's because as a kid, I was only ever praised for shit that came easy to me. I was never praised for my freaking, my reading scores. Guess what? I was a shitty reader. I still am a shitty reader, but I tried really hard to get good at it because I didn't want to be that kid in school who couldn't read.
Yeah.
But nobody ever said, Jake, you're really, And so because of that, I as an adult, I don't know. I feel like I never went down paths that weren't super obvious because of the praise that I received.
That makes sense.
And I wonder if because of, the fact that you were in this environment where your brother is a freaking autopilot genius.
I mean, I think he maybe I obviously had to work hard for his dissertation, but
Sure.
like he really had a knack for what he was doing. To this day, I don't know what he does.
Is he older or younger than you?
He's older. Yeah. And then he was also an Eagle Scout, so
Well, you didn't do scouts?
I hated it.
Really?
My parents finally let me quit.
They let me quit.
I was a star. I wasn't Eagle
Oh wow,
yet.
you didn't even get to Life Scout?
I was a step below. I was like very close to life.
Right.
I couldn't take it anymore. I hated everything about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love scouts.
Did you? So
Oh,
did my
I
brother.
love it.
I couldn't stand it.
Admittedly, the reason that I left scouts, bringing it back to comedy, was because I was being bullied. That you would think of all the places. I was in baseball. All these things I did, no problems. In scouts, in Boy Scouts.
You were being bullied by other Boy Scouts?
Yep.
That makes no sense.
I was by the senior scout, like by the senior patrol, whatever they called it.
Whatever.
Yeah. And it's funny because they're the type of people who I feel like I come across a lot in life where they weren't, obviously when Boy Scouts, these weren't like the athlete jock type
No,
of
they
bullies.
were getting bullied, and so they wanted to take it
Yes.
out on someone else.
And they were
Yeah.
like the smart kids. They were, I always use this term, smartest guy in the room syndrome. We know a lot of comics, you know what I mean, who kind of suffer from this, where they can't be in a room and not let everybody know that they're the smartest guy there. And they use that again, like they just can't shut it off.
Mhm.
And that was the reason why I left scouts, was because I was being bullied.
How far were you?
I was Life.
Oh my God.
I was like, can I say I was like weeks before Eagle? I was one of my biggest regrets. I could have made Eagle.
Were you working on your Eagle project?
Yep. I started. I mean, it was all like, it was ridiculous.
Didn't your parents, were they like, what are you doing?
You know what? It was, my mom was not the kind of woman who like really asked a lot of questions, and she was sort of a hands-off parent, which is a double-edged sword. At times I'm bitter about that, but sometimes I'm also like, well, I'm glad because I'm super independent. I was a super independent kid because she was like, I was that kind of kid who like, if I was out on my bike, it didn't matter. I didn't need to check in with mom, like,
Wow.
like that kind of thing. Like, also I wasn't a shitty kid.
Mhm.
So my mom didn't have a reason to be worrisome about me because she knew, I mean, I, never got into any sort of real legit trouble. I was a
Sure.
freaking nerd.
Yeah.
I was
Wow.
usually somewhere watching wrestling probably.
Dude, you would have made so much money as an Eagle Scout. Like I remember my brother when he had his like Eagle coronation or whatever they want to
Yeah?
call it. He made some cash. man.
Really?
He made a couple grand.
Really? Shit.
It's almost like a Gentile's version of a bar mitzvah. I
Yeah,
think,
my mom would have made me give it to her. I'm sure she would have been like, "Hey, that's rent."
Probably.
Probably.
But yeah, I don't regret.
But-
I didn't like it.
But it's incredible that you ended up still with this work ethic, regardless. Because
I mean, my parents were really good at like, they had to, my parents were poor growing up. Like they had to put themselves through nursing school. And so like they had to, their goal was like, we, just like any parent, we want to give our kids opportunities we didn't have.
Wow.
And they were also not the kind of parents that pressured us to get into relationships. They're like, look, you take care of yourself.
Gotcha.
You do not worry about girlfriends. Like,
Right.
just you do what you want to do. Apparently me and my brother took it to heart because he's got a girlfriend now,
Okay.
not married.
No.
I'm nowhere near a relationship.
wait. We're gonna unpack that in a minute. When you say nowhere near a relationship, does
Yeah.
that mean that you have no interest in one?
No, and if the right person comes along, sure. I've only ever been in two my entire life.
Really?
Yeah, the
Were they
last
long?
one. First one was off and on 2 years, and the second one was off and on 2 years, and that ended in January of 2010.
Johnny, that's a long time.
Yeah,
Although, admittedly, that was when my last real, like, legit relationship was too, up until my current one. So I get
yeah,
it.
you got lucky.
I get it. But also, not for nothing, like, that's part of the distraction, like you talked about. Like, how do you have time for video games? I don't know how some people in the entertainment industry have time for girlfriends or relationships. Like, you have to find the right person that's going to, like, give you that support, but
Yeah.
inversely, not. This is going to sound really shitty. Not get in your way. I know that sounds really
Yeah.
awful, but you know what I mean by that.
And then vice versa for you and that
Of course.
person. So it's like, I'm totally open to it, but I've learned so much that I know exactly what I want. And maybe I'm a bit of a self-sabotager and I jump ahead more than I should.
Okay.
But I don't want to get into a relationship until I meet someone who constantly makes me want to get better every single day, even more than I already do, which is going to be hard to do. And I want to make sure that I'm lifting her up to
Yeah.
be the best person she could possibly be. And because I see so many bad relationships, I've had friends get divorced, and I see all these like warning signs left and right.
Right.
It's just like, timing's got to be right and all that shit.
Are your parents still together?
Yep.
That's do you think that the description that you just gave of a relationship that you want to be in, do you think your parents fit that description?
I think so. I mean,
Because I feel like that could be very telling.
I think as close as you could be. Yeah, I mean, nothing's perfect, but yeah, they're retired. They live in Santa Maria. They moved out here.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they volunteer at animal shelters, and yeah, they're great. So,
but yeah, I feel like that might be why, is you might be sort of subconsciously chasing the relationship of your parents, and you might know that nobody you're meeting is up to that sort of standard.
I don't know. It would be fun. Like, I see my friends doing all this cool relationship stuff, and like I always joke around. I'm like, I'll start watching TV when I get a girlfriend.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah.
I'm open to it. It's just got to be, the timing's got to be right. It's weird. I have yet, like, I don't know. There aren't a lot of, I text with girls, but like, there's not a lot of time to actually meet up.
Right.
And
again, you're a busy dude. Hardest working man in show business. I'm giving you the title.
Trying to pay the rent.
That's you. Yeah. Which is also hard to do with a girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's why I just moved mine in immediately.
I don't blame you.
I was like, you know what? This is going to work. I feel this. I'm in it. Come on, let's split this rent because it's expensive.
Look, besides the fact that her cat beat up your dog, she's lovely.
She's quite lovely.
As your now hairless dog sits next to us, sleeping.
Yeah,
having nightmares of cats beating him up.
Yeah, poor Cosmo he got some claws. He got a couple claws, and so he has this ridiculous haircut from where they had to shave him to examine all of the lacerations. He was covered, dude. They were everywhere.
What
poor
the hell?
guy.
I can't imagine him even retaliating.
A lot of them were from the front back, so he clearly was hit from behind. It was like a hit and run.
Oh boy!
Because he was like, they were, the way that a cat kind of grabs and pulls towards him, you could tell the claws were spread out, and then they got narrower towards from this front to his back.
Poor guy.
I know, the poor guy, but
that's
anyways,
like beating up. Cosmo's old enough. That's like beating up an elderly man.
Well, first off, he literally is an elderly man. The dog is 190 years old. Yeah, he's like 14 years old.
Whoa.
14, 15, somewhere in that range. It's a mystery.
So he's triple digits.
Yeah, he's an old ass dog.
It's like beating up a really, really old man. God, that's messed up.
Speaking of beating up old men, I'd be remiss if we didn't speak a little bit about pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things that I think we first kind of clicked with when it was like, oh, you're a wrestling fan? I'm a wrestling fan. Wrestling is fun. Another thing where you talk about getting to a place to do a thing that you want to do. When I first met you, you were just a fan, but then you had your own podcast. You were doing the Steel Chair Slamcast is what it was called back then.
Yeah.
With future guest of the show, Eddie Pence. And now you're doing commentary.
Mm-hmm.
One, how did the commentary come about? And two, like, you talk about, hey, how do you have time to do video games? How do you have time to do this? Do you feel like by pursuing that, it allowed you to still kind of be a fan of this thing? Because it's hard to keep up with wrestling. It's a lot of hours a week.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of hours. How that came about was I've been a host for a long time,
right?
And I got hit up, I want to say summer of 2010, by this guy David Marquez, who he's worked in wrestling for 30 years,
Sure.
NWA and a bunch of other promotions.
Any relation to Tom Marquez? Prodigy Tom Marquez?
I don't know.
Okay, never mind.
But
Continue.
he hit me up and he said, I'm starting a television show and I need someone to do interviews. My top camera guy worked with you on something and said you'd be a good option. I looked at your footage. I think you're good. Do you want to do it? I said, hell yeah. I was in before I even got here.
Right, yeah.
And so
I was hoping you would say this. I don't even know who you were yet.
It was amazing. And so, yeah, we've been on the air over 7 years. I think today we filmed episodes, I want to say 327, 328 or something like that.
Right.
And we're actually, I was doing interviews for a while. And then about 4 years ago, the two guys who did commentary both couldn't make a taping. And so I got a phone call and he said, well, you're doing commentary on Sunday. I was like, okay, I've never done that.
Right.
And man, I fell in love with it. And
right.
It's like, it's me. I'm a prep whore. I show up with 10 pages of notes just because obviously a lot of it's improv, but at the same time, there's certain moments where it's great to have things, and fell in love with it and just been working really hard at getting as good as I possibly can be. And then starting in October, we're actually going to be airing on Saturday mornings on 110 CW stations.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Super cool.
Yeah, there's some legit jealousy there, Johnny, because I've always wanted to do that. Admittedly, I'd love to be an announcer.
Like a ring announcer.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to be a ring announcer.
There's opportunities out there for it.
Yeah. It's again one of those things. I have to have that Jonny Loquasto.
You got to drive, not get paid. You know what I mean? Like, but no, it's It's exciting. It's going to air 7 a.m. across the country in a whole bunch of different, like 110 different markets, I guess. And so it's really exciting. We're building up to that right now. And it's called Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And it's fun, man. We tell really good stories. Like we have long, drawn out storylines that you just don't see in pro wrestling anymore.
Right.
And we have a cool fan base. And it's such a good family. Like honestly, tapings on Sunday are like my favorite days of the month because I'm going to see my friends.
Right.
And we're all working together.
And it's also, as a stand-up who is doing a ton of creative freelance stuff, it's like, it's the closest thing you have to sort of a day job style thing where you get to see the same people.
It's so fun. And like I said, the CW thing is great. And there's going to be more opportunities down the road. Maybe more stations, but it's pretty cool because we grew up watching wrestling on Saturday mornings and now we're going to be on Saturday mornings. Pretty neat.
Johnny, I feel like we barely cracked the surface here because we were all over the place, but it's also because there's so many facets to the Quasto. I feel like you're this enigma.
Nah. Just a tired dude.
Just a tired
That's
dude.
it, man.
That's what his business card says. Jonny Loquasto, tired dude.
Just a tired dude. I'm actually, well, it's funny. As soon as we get to recording, we're going to be brainstorming about a video we're shooting this week.
Sure.
Which I cannot wait
to help
because
promote your album.
Well, just to make fun of me, really. But yeah.
Right.
But like the last video we did, it's been a year and a half already, but it's gotten so much good feedback. We did the Love Actually parody.
Right.
And I tell everyone, I'm like, it's all him. I'm like, we collaborate and shit just becomes fun.
Oh,
like,
thanks. Appreciate
works,
that.
You know?
I mean, honestly, Johnny's that guy who, like, I'll get a call 8 o'clock in the morning or a text 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. And he's like, hey, I want to release something tomorrow. Can we do it? And I'm like, and then all of a sudden we're shooting in my apartment at 2 a.m. that night to get it edited and done for 6 a.m. the next day.
Sleep takes a backseat.
You do enjoy topical stuff too. Like the only topical stuff on the Three Principles channel is Jonny Loquasto stuff. Like we did a bit about Left Shark when that whole shit happened.
Oh, that was great. That did pretty well.
We did a bit about Britton McHenry when that happened, about V. Stiviano, like all these like kind of sports and pop culture things.
And those
Which
videos,
honestly, I would love to do more, but it is like you got to be on it quick to get any sort of traction, and also it's a lot of work.
It's a time consuming.
It's very time consuming.
Now it'll be pretty easy
to make it good.
Yeah, it'll be pretty easy.
But all right, so the list, brand new album. We'll talk about that again in a moment here. Stand up dates. Are you still around the country? Or are you pretty much local? Like you're touring?
I'm trying to. The problem is I don't have comedy representation right now.
Right.
So
it's tougher.
The only time I really get on the road is if, someone books me, which is really hard. Most clubs, they only respond to agents.
Right, of course.
So occasionally I'll get a booking on my own. Or if a friend is headlining somewhere and I'm allowed to go with them and open.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll try to headline an off night.
Right.
So
you try to grab that Wednesday of the week that they're doing Thursday through Sunday kind of thing. Yeah,
for sure.
We've all been there. Yeah.
Not easy to do.
No.
But yeah, so I mean, I love,
especially when you only have 25 minutes of material and you're telling them you have 45.
Oh, back in the day, yeah.
that was me all the time. I was like, oh yeah, no, I could do Wednesday nights.
Oh my god.
30 minutes in, I'm like, what's your name?
Especially the Wednesdays are never packed either, so it's a little bit harder.
Oh, absolutely. But okay, so you got that.
I try to get on the road as much as possible. I love doing it. It's just it's few and far between. You never know. Like some months I have a bunch of stuff, other months not much, but I love leaving. So it's
Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Regular Hero, is there a website for that?
Yeah, regularhero.org, and you can just check out, see what the organization does. And the mantra is make things better. So we've been hit up by people all walks of life, and we've done all types of things.
Wrestling Compadres podcast.
Yeah. At Compadres Show.
When are you gonna have me on?
Soon.
Please.
Yeah.
I listen and I go, I have an opinion about this.
You would love our studio.
I would really love your studio.
We gotta do it.
And after all of that, how do people find you on the internet?
I'm at J Quasto. JQUASTO, JLoComedy.com. But my album is, I have a website for it called QuastoAlbum.com, QUASTO album.com. And it's super easy. I think it actually helped a lot with Billboard. You go to the page and it's got a link for iTunes, Amazon, Google Play. Boom.
Perfect.
Simple. It's very idiot proof. It takes no time. Like my friends download the album in like 20 seconds. And I think it really helped. And so, yeah, you can go to Quasto Album, and I'm telling you, you won't regret the purchase. You'll be very happy you bought it, I think.
Stick around after the commercial to hear a track from Jonny Loquasto presents Jonny Loquasto's Jonny Loquasto by Jonny Loquasto. Find me on Twitter at Liquid Jake. Be sure to follow Elaborate Pod on all social media, as well as It's Dragon Wagon for all things Dragon Wagon Radio. Those of you leaving iTunes reviews, thank you so much. Please keep it up. Those are incredibly important. We are a 5-star rated podcast. I would love to keep that rating as well as garnish a ton more reviews. Hey, do this. If you like the show, if you're enjoying this, share it, please.
Yep.
Share it with somebody who you know who digs talk radio and fun conversations and sits in their freaking car for 20 hours or goes to the gym. That'd be great. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Johnny, thank you for sitting with me.
Yeah, it's fun to catch up. And
fun.
I can't wait to shoot this week.
Yeah, we're going to do it. I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
Hey, everybody. I'm sitting down with somebody who you're very familiar with already, Paul Bianchi.
Yes, I'm sitting down with you, Jake Lloyd.
This is true. We are both currently sitting down. I want you to tell us a little bit about your love for Greek mythology.
Oh my gosh. This is a lifelong love that began when my dad opened up Dolores' book of Greek mythology and started reading me stories before bedtime, and it just grew from there.
You utilize it a lot as a writer as well, don't you?
A lot of writers.
Right.
It's Hollywood is overrun with allegories about Greek mythology, and I think that when you become really familiar with it, you see it even in places you didn't even expect to see it.
And shit gets weird in Greek mythology.
Oh, super weird. Yeah, there's a lot of incest and there's a lot of murder and cutting of genitals. You know, it's a party.
And it's a party that you talk about on a podcast on this very podcast network. Segue
to Myth Understood, my podcast where I talk to my good friend Sarah Oliver about Greek mythology, and she tries to learn. Just bless her heart.
How do they check it out?
Well, they can check it out on Stitcher and iTunes, and they can go directly to the webpage, mythunderstoodpodcast.com.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Jake.
And I feel like we often make the mistake of assuming that someone has an education that means they're intelligent, which I don't think they necessarily go hand in hand. No, it's true. I have a master's degree. I'm a goddamn moron. I admit it. Master's degree means I'm good at one thing. I'm a physical therapist. I can diagnose injuries and I can treat them. You know what I can't do? Everything else. Mounting a TV into a wall. Walking by a hot girl at the gym without banging my knee on something. Knowing what a Pikachu and a Bulbasaur is. I have no idea. But the moment where I realized how dumb I truly was, I was trying to buy a snack at a little stand a couple of weeks ago, and the woman working there saw me perusing, and she goes, well, what do you like better? Do you like things that are sweet or things that are savory? And I couldn't answer her, because I don't know what savory means. I've heard the word before. I know when I hear savory, I'm supposed to go, But that's it. I was just trying to buy some popcorn. So she's like, what do you like better, sweet popcorn or savory popcorn? I'm like, stop making fun of me. Which one's butter?
It's Dragon Wagon.